this. Now, let's start with the second panel discussion for the day, creating an emotional connect through CX. This panel will illustrate how brands can leverage consumer experience to stay ahead of the game and form an emotional connect with the consumers. Let me invite on stage Mr. Sudhakar Rao, Director Branding, ICFA Group on stage, will be moderating this discussion along with our illustrious panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Invite on stage Shushmita Balasubramaniam, Shopper and Retail Practice Head, Kantar IMRB. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Vaishali Verma, CEO Initiative. Thank you for applauding. Please welcome on stage Samar Singh Shekhawat, CMO United Breweries Limited. Vikram Tanna, Vice President, Head of Advertising Sales and Business, Head of Regional Clusters, Discovery Communications India. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please do be generous with those applause. All right, can I hear a big round of applause? Invite all the panelists on stage. Thank you. I now hand over the mic to the moderator.
Good evening to all of you. Is there any fatigue? It's 6:45. No. Stay true to your response and feedback. Okay? We are going to take 1 more hour from here. So if you're not fatigued, we are going to give you a little bit of discussion. We have excellent panelists here today. And the topic is even more exciting. Creating an emotional connect through customer experience. Entire day, I'm sure you have been listening to various speakers, a lot of gyan on CX, and several breaks and several discussions and questions and answers. So today in this panel, we will spend some time about sharing our insights and perspectives about the whole thing about creating this emotional connect. Before I get into the actual discussion, there are a few important points that we should be clear about. That is, we are not going to talk about anything that has created emotional disconnect. We are not going to talk about any examples which has created emotional disconnect. That's not going to be useful to any one of us. We are not going to talk about how technology has driven emotional connections and how technology is actually driving the customer experiences. Because that was part of the previous panel. So we are not going to talk about that. We are going to share some of the experiences that we have been directly or indirectly been part of, shaping some customer experiences or creating some emotional connect. And we understand that marketing is basically what the brand is all about. Marketing, branding is what brand is, the definition of brand. And then customer experience is what the brand does, what actually it does. Therefore, while the entire energy of the marketing or branding is in creating a perception or an expectation to the customer, customer experience actually delivers it. So it's a kind of reality check. With this background, I think we will now get into a brief discussion initially. We have wonderful panelists, as I mentioned. We have Vaishali, who is from media planning throughout, a very rich experience of about 22 years. And then we have Sushmita. She is from research. She is the fountainhead of all insights. We are going to have a lot of questions to her. We have Vikram. Vikram is from broadcast. He is going to talk about various aspects about content, broadcast. And then we have the FMCG boss here, Samar. He is from UB. I think based on the experience and the kind of roles that we have played, either in this particular stint or in the previous ones, we can one round take the audience through where we were directly responsible or indirectly responsible for creating some kind of emotional connect through customer experience in our own brands, our own organizations, or the organizations that we advised. Start with Vaishali.
Hi. So, of course, it's a no-brainer today that emotional connect is important for any brand. And when we talk about emotional connect, it's not about meeting, brand satisfaction. I think most of the brands are doing that today through social listening and, with so much of data, AI, etc. They are, but emotional connect is when you go beyond and exceed expectation. You provide that delight to the customer. And my take on this is, as an observer of brand, consumer, media, very few brands have managed to do that. Today, all the brands are trying to meet expectation. They are trying to get back the customer. How they are trying ways and means how you could spend more on their brands, how you would buy them more. But are they delighting you beyond that? Very few examples here. And I just have one example. It's a story it goes back to 1960. There was a Rolls-Royce being driven on a road, on a highway, and it broke down. The owner got off the car and he walked into the gas station. He called the company, and within 30 minutes, the company sends a mechanic. He fixes the car, he flies back, no question asked. He was completely dazed, delighted. He calls the company and he says, thank you, and it's just what I never expected that. And Rolls-Royce said, thank you, but we never came, because Rolls-Royce car never breaks down, So that's the level of, the delight which Rolls-Royce would have offered at 1960, and of course the story went viral. Today, I will not get into the technology side. There are enough and more ways and means to talk about in a positive manner. But I think the brand still needs to work a lot in understanding what are the motivations, and hence anticipate those requirements and think consumer backward and not brand backward.
Hi. Okay, I have actually a slightly different viewpoint on that. One is that, you obviously have to delight, you have to do that, but very often the consumer they're not looking to be delighted at particular points of the thing. So if you look at the consumer decision journey, for instance, before they buy a product or before they use a product, very often it's a very simple, what they expect is something very simple. And if you're able to deliver on that, that sort of takes, makes it a seamless experience. The other point that I have is that, when you say emotional connect, it's not about, you make them emotionally charged or, you make them cry when they see the ad or, laugh. It's not about that. There are various moments in their decision journey. And as long as the brand can be relevant in those moments which the consumer cares about, then you got it right. Let's take an example, for instance, IKEA. IKEA is something that people are so passionate about. When any IKEA consumer that you go to, I have rarely seen anybody complain about IKEA. It's because of right from the parking to the experience inside, what the kind of fun that your children can have, everything, they deliver it, and they are very hands-off in the sense that you do what you want, so you feel at home in IKEA. And this extends beyond. I have a team in Bangalore, for instance, who loves to work on IKEA because they are such passionate IKEA consumers. So that's the kind of emotional connect that you're talking about. The other example is Apple, for instance, the kind of seamless experience that they provide. I know many people who have grumbled about how expensive the iPhone X is, but they've gone and bought it. And when you talk about that moment where you're buying it and that beautiful package and you peel off every part of it, it makes you feel so good that you're part of the Apple family. So I think those are examples that we should look at. We've got it right.
Awesome. While we are on IKEA, I have one example to share. It may not be vanilla customer experience driven emotional connect, but there's a famous blue bag, which is the IKEA's blue bag. Can you see this? This is called IKEA's blue bag. So there's one designer brand which has launched a Me Too kind of blue bag. And they tagged it at $2,144 US dollars. So in response to that, IKEA managed to release one advertisement. And the advertisement has got a picture like this, and it read in 5 bullet points. And those 5 bullet points is worth reading here. Washed by any kind of garden hose when it is dirty. Point number 4, fold it. If you are able to actually fold it into a very small bag, it is the real one, and congratulations. And the last one, that is the 5th, look inside. The original one has got an IKEA tag. And the last one, the leaving parting shot is, there is a price tag, and that is USD 0.99. So as opposed to $2,144, they pegged it at $0.99, and that is the value of the original IKEA bag that it is about. Sorry for the digression, and now we go to our friend Vikram.
When it comes to consumer emotions, we are actually in the business of emotions itself, and human emotions is something which is an integral part of any content. Every piece of content always looks forward to creating emotions, whether it's to make consumers laugh, cry. Obviously, today, all of you guys participate heavily on social media using emojis. But what are these emojis, right? They've all come in from a method of consuming content and generating human reactions on screen. And what is very important over here, apart from just being in the business of emotions, is actually going to the center of it and looking at it, saying how are great businesses built. Most of the great businesses built today are on friendship, and friendship is built through emotions with the consumer. Let's look at a few examples. Most of us in this room would have grown up having a great connect with Walt Disney characters, be it Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. It's very close to all of us even today, and that's what emotion is. Just imagine this is a cinema hall, a multiplex, and when you're walking in to watch a movie, rather than somebody helping you where your seating arrangement is, just imagine there's a Star Wars character and you love the Star Wars franchise guiding you to your seat. That's creating a better emotion than just a normal human being giving you your seating place. Likewise, to get better emotional connect, content always tries to build IPs, which builds franchises over a period of time. So for example, when we started looking at building IPs for our own business, which is in Discovery Kids, we realized that there is a big gap between, what is there in the kid genre space. So one was Bollywood, the other is Men in Uniform. And then we started looking at it, what really appeals to the consumer. I'm sure most of you guys are aware of this movie, Singham. Singham is released in Tamil, Telugu. It's also, a big blockbuster in the HSM market, Bollywood itself. And then there are returning franchises coming there. So when we launched Little Singham, it was an instant hit because we didn't have to market the concept of Singham. It's called Little Singham. It's an animated character. And then it gives you pan-India presence because you're just not in one market, you're in multiple markets. Now, what does this character do? Building emotions with individuals, which is kids over here, was much easier because it's an established IP. You're just creating another version of it. And then when you start building friendship with kids in this manner, it gives you a larger play into a wide foray of businesses that you may want to do on kids. So for example, our global rollout of the Discovery Kids app is going to happen soon, where the whole concept is, watch, which is videos, and play, which is going to be gaming. And it's going to guarantee product safety to the consumer in terms of, getting the right brand filters for the consumer. At that time, if we have somebody to take the kid through content as a character, which is Little Singham, it makes your life easier rather than going and marketing and letting the kid explore it. So it's really about building familiarity, building friendship, and getting closer to the consumer. That's really, what helps in terms of connecting with the consumer from a content perspective.
Awesome. That's very good. Now, the UP boss. You can borrow it.
So the disadvantage of speaking last is that anything I wanted to say has already been said by these people, so I won't say the same thing differently. But maybe I'll tell you a couple of stories. I think the challenge is delivering experiences at scale. You know, by definition, highly customized, personalized experiences are memorable. I mean, I was overseas once and I went to a Chinese restaurant twice, on 2 consecutive nights. And on the second night, my server told me, "Hello, sir, my name is George. I'm going to be your server for tonight. And what would you like to have?" So I said, "George, do you know I was here last night as well?" So George says, "And were you, sir? And who was your server?" So I said, "My server was Chris." So George says, "Chris is a great server. I don't know if I can do so well, but I'll give it my best shot." Now, Chris will never know George said this about him. George does not know that Samar will say to Chris that George was saying great things about you. But it's just the way they were trained. And this story is 10 years old, and I have told it 100 times. And the restaurant chain is a Chinese chain called P.F. Ching's, which is very popular in America. So that's, one story of customer delight, but it's individualized. It's highly customized. I'll tell you a personal story. A second one is there is a restaurant in Shankar Market in Delhi called Kakeda Hotel, where I go to eat brain curry. And my grandfather used to eat there. My father's eaten there. I've eaten there. My daughter's eaten there. The restaurant is over 100 years old. I first went there when I was 7 years old. 46 years later, the brain curry tastes exactly the same. For me, that's customer delight. I think it's not exceptional service that really decides it, but it is the consistency of the level of experience that determines whether you're delighted or not. If I am at flying Jet Airways, for instance, I know I will get X service. In my mind, if that benchmark is met every time, then I think it's customer delight. But as I think Sushmita and Vaishali and even Vikram said, that emotional connect, I think, comes with longevity and multiplicity of experiences. Certain sights and sounds and smells take us back. So I'm fortunate where I live on the ground floor in Bangalore, and whenever I hear a koel, which I do every day, I'm transported back to my grandmother's house, and I'm 7 years old. Certain sights and sounds. Have you ever wondered why coffee smells much better than it tastes? The taste of coffee is inevitably a letdown compared to the smell. Tea is the other way around. It typically tastes better than it smells. So now I have evoked certain expectations with the smell of coffee. In fact, United Airlines, by the way, has a bunch of coffee beans hanging in their washrooms to remove odious smells, and it's a great way of stimulating appetite. But inevitably, the coffee doesn't taste as great as it smells. So I think the gap between what is promised through either direct or subliminal messaging and versus what gets delivered. And at the end of it, I say, if you're confused, you work for a service provider or a brand or a company that is wanting to emotionally engage consumers, just think like a consumer yourself. When was the last time you were delighted by anyone or anything? And that, I think, will give you a lot of cues in terms of doing it. But I still think delivering emotional engagement at scale is very, very difficult, and it is inextricably intertwined with longevity of experience and multiplicity of experiences. So that's my 2 bits on that.
Yeah, I think the first round is very good. It has thrown up a lot of insights. If I can summarize what Samar has mentioned, consistency of delivering your product or service with that expected level of quality. If you can do that over 1,000 times, like over 2 generations, 3 generations that you have had experience in your story, it is delight. There is some kind of connect, and you will have a forward-looking recommendation. You will advocate for that brand. And I'm sure you will tell all your friends to go and eat there, going by your example. So consistency in the service of product quality. Number 2, the way the waiter was trained to talk about his colleague. It talks about the organization which is so connected. They've been trained to talk so positive, and they've been asked not to run down the other person very positively, and also share the ownership. This is one organization, and we all have to share the values of this organization, and we have to take care of the customer and delight him equally, if not better. I think that was in exact words which the waiter has conveyed. So the ownership and connected organization is a prerequisite towards building an emotional connect. Otherwise, this story wouldn't have come today on this stage in this discussion. So definitely they have created an emotional connect through the customer experience by creating a connected organization with a shared ownership. Wonderful lessons. Everything falls back to textbook. I will also share one story. I thought Sama will talk about something on the beverages side. I am also a teetotaler. I just learned that he's a teetotaler, so therefore I am resonating. I don't drink, I don't smoke. The best I drink is juices. So this story is about beverages. There is something called Taylor's. Taylor's wines, all of you know? Nobody knows. Okay, silently you know about Taylor's wines. Yeah, good. So Taylor's wines, they have a particular brand which is called Promised Land Wines. They launched a touch-sensitive color-changing stickers. The color-changing stickers, if you pour your wine in the glass and depending on the temperature, it changes a particular color, and at a particular recommended temperature, the wine is tasted the best. So how do you promote this? They have actually taken up one challenge. It is called Taylor's Temperature Challenge, which you can take at your home, sitting in your house. The challenge is like this. You take a red wine bottle, pour a glass of wine, taste it, make a mental note of it, and then put it in the fridge. After half an hour, you take it out and again pour a glass of red wine and you taste it. You will find the red wine much better in the second round. Now take the white wine, which is already chilled. You take the first glass, chilled white wine, you make a note of it, and again, you keep it outside itself. After half an hour, pour the second glass, and then the second glass tastes much better. So depending on the wine and depending on the quality, the temperature is recommended. And at the end of the challenge, Taylor asked the customer to register for a free set of temperature-sensitive stickers, which can be used on any glass anywhere. It's not at all technical, it's very, very simple. So through this experience and some kind of challenge that they have managed to run, they propagated this kind of uniqueness and created a lot of value around what they're actually selling. I think this is one relevant example as far as your industry is concerned. So, sir, is this only about B2C? We are only talking about B2C. B2C looks very romantic. A lot of B schools talk about B2C. They also talk about B2B. Now, are there no emotional connections? Are there no customer experiences in B2B? Can we have any insights from the panel with respect to B2B? B2B also behaves like B2C? Ma'am?
It also depends on which kind of B2B you're looking at. For instance, we do a lot of work with retailers and wholesalers. So when they shop for their business, it's the kind of expectations they have and the kind of, the needs they have. Very often they become consumers themselves. So, I mean, the typical journey may be different, the inflection points may be different, but you still need to identify those inflection points and deliver on those points. So that's something which is still, something that is, has to be taken note of. So, yes, I mean.
It does work there as well, and conscious companies do work on creating emotional connects, and there's a whole set of methodologies and strategies.
Absolutely.
Sure. Since you have that experience, I asked you, having dealt with a variety of domains, I have asked you that question. Now, how important are these emotional connections in B2B? We have understood just now. And typically, is it that when you actually browse, when you Google about emotional connects and customer experiences, you will get a lot of advertisements. You can actually create emotional connect through advertisements as well, although that's not the topic for us today. There are a variety of advertising, the variety of communication pieces which are brilliant, which have created some kind of emotional connects, and maybe it stayed for a shorter life. Some of it are remembered widely. Sometimes it is viral initially, but forgotten very soon. For example, we have this wash your hands before eating roti in the Kumbh Mela, which we all have read somewhere or seen. In the Kumbh Mela, what they've run is they've run Lifebuoy heat stamp on rotis that are served. So on the roti, it is written that you have to wash your hands before eating. It is written in Hindi. And it has created kind of consciousness as a message that you need to wash your hands. And as a response, a lot of participants in Kumbh Mela have gone and washed their hands and they've taken the responses. It has gone viral. The attempt to create an emotional connect has an underlying feature, that is, it says that the brand cares for you. It says that the brand cares for you in a manner which is either in big scale or small scale. But in this example, the scale was pretty huge and they managed to stamp it on every single roti. Probably it was very expensive. Probably not. But they managed to tell the world that they care for the hygiene part and they have to wash their hands before eating the roti. And that was one communication which was very, very, very clear. But we are talking about customer experience as a design. Companies which are conscious of creating customer experience. Why do we have to create good customer experience? Because it might lead to emotional connections. Why emotional connections? Yes, an emotional connected customer is twice valuable as a highly satisfied customer. As Vaishali mentioned, you cannot stop with satisfaction. Probably satisfaction into 1,000 times or 1 lakh times is equal to emotional connection, as told by Samar. But then you have to go above it. So emotionally connected customer is twice as valuable as highly satisfied customer, and that leads towards better experiences and therefore better financial outcomes. This is what studies have told us. Therefore, customer experience has to be a design. It cannot be an accident. It cannot be one time. It cannot be in silos. It has to be a designed activity. It is part of a strategy. So if that is the case, how do we measure and what kind of parameters that we have to look at in terms of creating a design customer experience? I would first go to Sushmita ma'am. If an organization has to establish a framework of customer experience design, how would they go about doing it? You can take any domain and explain where we can easily understand.
See, I think it's first, we have to take a step back and look at what is the kind of experience that you want to, create. One is to actually go and understand the consumer experience completely. For instance, if let's take an example. Suppose I'm in the kitchen appliance business. I need to know how exactly the housewife, uses or cooks in the kitchen. Otherwise, I can't create a kitchen appliance. So one is to actually get into the shoes of the housewife and learn everything that there is to learn about it. And there are ways and means to do it. Only when you get that kind of learning, you understand what the pain points are, things which could be improved. There are various things that, the brand can bring to the table. And after that, you craft what your consumer experience should be, and then they'll, develop the metrics accordingly. Have I answered your question?
You have answered that, but I'm looking for something. For example, if you get down to studying the responses of the customers, I have to learn more about him. I have to get a lot of data, insight, knowledge. As Steve Jobs said, know your customer too well and preempt him before the customer asks for it. To that extent, you have to know. While in the process of knowing, which is theoretical at this stage now, we have not yet disclosed, not yet learned. I ask a lot of questions, I take feedback, there are surveys. In those surveys, the customers actually don't give the right answers sometimes, themselves. It might mislead you as an organization, and you might invest on wrong platforms or wrong elements to build, and thereby your ROI goes for a toss.
Yeah, that is, okay. Precisely we're talking about how to measure the emotional connect. What you're talking about is basically traditional survey-based methods, which obviously will not work because, I mean, you're probably going back to a customer, 2 weeks after they've bought a product and, asking them to remember things, which is not right. What increasingly we are doing is measuring in-the-moment kind of reactions. When I say in-the-moment kind of reactions, I mean, there are, technological advances like neurosciences and all that, but these are very expensive. You don't really have to go that far right now. There are things where observations, just standing and watching what the consumer is doing, that's a very powerful tool. You can use video analytics. For instance, you want to know what your experience has been in a store. There are security cameras all over, and I mean, you have that is very rich data. Take a look at that and see where your, shoppers or your, store visitors are finding it difficult to navigate. What is the pain points? Are there irritations? Are there places where, they stop, they look for sales staff, they don't find, I mean, they talk, they feel irritated. Huge amount of data. So take a look at that. Observations. And, there are many, now, thanks to technology, we have very simple kind of mechanisms. For instance, IKEA, I'm sorry to mention IKEA again, but I mean, it's a very good example of how, you build emotional connect. In some countries, they have something called a quality advisor or a quality auditor. Basically, they install an app on the shopper's, phone when they get in. And as they go into every section, there is a question which pops up saying, how has your experience been? They are allowed to take photographs of what delighted them, and you can actually map the entire journey through that app and pictures and questions which are very easy to answer. So I'm not doing it at the end of the journey or, 1 week later saying you went to IKEA last time and so what happened. So these are things that you should look at. Social media. Basically, it's looking at multiple sources of data and fusing it together to get that complete picture. That will give you the metrics much better.
So that I'll just kind of get here. In the content business, a lot of time, if you keep it simple, it probably sometimes works better. Let me give you a simple example. I was associated with the music business. And in those times, we used to run only international music. And, you do a lot of surveys and you talk to people around to your point of, you ask questions and you get the right answer in surveys. So you go and ask people saying, what kind of music do you listen to? And I'll play that music on the broadcasting channel. And, people will talk about, I like trance, I like hip hop, I love these kind of songs. When you start playing it, business doesn't grow. And then you go back to the consumer and say, hey, this is the survey. Now, can I come to your house and check your collection? Yeah? It's not even an 80-20 rule. It's 99 and 1. So 99% is Bollywood. You change it, and it changes. You go down to the ground level and figure it out. I was there at one of the parties which we had organized. We said we'll get Paul Van Dyke. I don't know, now you guys are pretty familiar, but that time Paul Van Dyke was coming for the first time in India. And then you kind of create the party around that, the communication around that. There are hoardings, you are able to sell tickets, etc. And Paul Van Dyke comes and plays at midnight. He's basically playing from midnight to 2 a.m. Before that is Bollywood, after that is Bollywood. People are dancing. You just have to see the dance floor. Yeah, it's packed. There's a local DJ, it's packed. And people are waiting, and you take the tempo up, and in comes Paul Van Dyke at midnight. The ticket is sold on his behalf. 12:45. Dance floor is empty. People are at the bar. Paul Van Dyke does this after playing music. And then everybody does this with a glass in the hand. And that's the difference. After 2 a.m., the party took on. So you have to really not look at the head of the consumer. You can't try and get into his head. You have to get into his heart. That's the real difference.
In research, we call it claimed responses versus reality. That's basically it.
So you have to get into his heart and not his head. I think that's the punchline for the day. Very good. I think Summer has been in retail in the past. Any lessons where in connection to what Sushmita has mentioned?
Yeah, I just have a come back to Vikram's get into his heart and not into his head. Getting into his heart is easy. How do you get into her heart?
More of it, please.
And that's so I worked for 4 years with Spencer's Retail, and we were largely a food and grocery retailer. 60% of our shoppers were women. So the first thing I did was my marketing team was 60% female. I think that worked for us. And, you know, there are things like you enter a store, men turn right, women turn left, or is it the other way around? I can't recall now. Paco Underhill will tell you from Call of the Mall and Why We Shop, etc. But, you know, men spend the same amount of time in matters that interest them as women do in matters that interest them. You know, this is a fallacy that men will have a list and they'll go X, Y, Z and check out quicker than a woman does. That's not true. So if you're in sportswear, or if you're, you know, browsing books or music or other matters of your interest, you will take as much time and as, let's say, you know, a woman who's shopping for cosmetics or personal care products. You know, it's again the thing about doing it at scale, because the moment of truth for the consumer, the customer, is when he or she meets the shop floor assistant. And I will tell you two funny stories that I've, I think, told in this hotel before. Rakshanda Khan, who's was a popular television actress, walked into our stores and asked one of the boys, where's the loo? And he said, 1 minute, ma'am. And he runs away and comes back in 5 minutes and says, madam, we have Levi's and Lee, we don't have loo. And this is at the Spencer store in Malad in Orbit Mall, which is, you know, part of the western suburbs. Ashish Vidyarthi, and some of the actors used to live there. And because these got escalated, therefore I remember the names. Ashish Vidyarthi came in and asked for the washroom. And this shop floor assistant, she came back with a packet of mushrooms. So, yep. So here's the thing, right? You have South Bombay, western suburbs, people coming into shop. And the people they're dealing with are boys and girls who live, for instance, in Dharavi, Kandivali, 8 or 10 in a room, you know, and they have to transcend the social and economic reality of their existence to play a role working and serving these kind of customers. So we actually, Jet Airways were used to train our staff, you know, or the same agency that trained Jet Airways, but you know, the staff gets 4,000 rupees, he or she gets 1,000 rupees more, that's 20% higher for him, or 25%, so they will jump ship. So it's a constant process, and really the last mile connectivity is where India falters all the time. Because, you know, labor is cheap in this country, we have an abundance of it, there's any amount of people. I mean, I was at lunch at Cafe Noir at UB City today with my wife and daughter, and there were only 5 tables occupied. And there were about 9 servers, and we had to wait for 15 minutes before someone, and I'm a regular there, and the land is leased from us. UB owns that land. I'm not getting into that, but, you know, we had to wait for 15 minutes before someone even noticed us. And this is not the first time that's happened at Cafe Noir. So maybe the next time I'll think, you know, maybe not Cafe Noir, go somewhere else. But imagine if I'm a first-time customer to that store, and that's how I get treated the first time. I'm almost guaranteed never to come back. So it's again that point that I said of multiplicity and longevity of experiences. You're probably ready to forgive a poor experience when you normally have had a good experience. Maybe you'll come back a second time and say, maybe the chef was in a bad mood, or maybe the server had a fight with his wife, or something happened. But it's very hard to do the last mile connectivity. The moment of truth is when the shop floor assistant deals with the person who's serving him or her. And that's where, you know, training and for that person it's not a big deal, because he or she is momentarily having to operate in an environment that is not organic to that person. And in India this is a big thing. But young consumers today, and you talked about advertising, they don't trust advertising anymore. And you know, Sushmita will know about something called a Net Promoter Score. So if you were to ask someone, how likely are you to recommend this movie? How likely are you to recommend this fashion brand? How likely are you to recommend this restaurant? Sometimes a singular point is a reasonably good barometer of, you know, what image that thing. And then you can even do a positive versus negative and come to a Net Promoter Score. But really, I mean, these are all statistical tools, and yes, consumers are loath to participate in surveys. I will give you 2 quick examples. So if you take an Ola or an Uber, before you get off, the driver inevitably tells you, sir, 5 ki rating dena, sir, 4 ki rating dena, sir, kuch to acha dena. And you feel almost, and of course it's very easy, it pops up on your screen, so you almost feel compelled to do a 4 or a 5. The funny thing is their ratings are always 4.5, 4.6. But as human beings, you will always enter a 4 or a 5. Rarely will you enter a 3. So that's one way of, shall I say, forced customer delight or manifestation of customer delight. But the example that I'm very fond of is Indigo Airlines. When they're about to land, they make an announcement saying that if you can collect your trash and pass it to the cabin crew that is appearing, so that we can turn the flight around faster for the next leg. You almost feel compelled to do it. They have very successfully co-opted their customers into the narrative of their service message, because you know that someone did it so that this flight turned around for you. And that's quite amazing. I mean, that you've co-opted your customers into your story. So that, at least in India, that's one of my favorite examples.
As usual, awesome example, Samar. What touch points or what elements create a value for individual? It is different, actually. I'm not discounting this example in Indigo. With Indigo, I have a different experience. It's not about timing. It's not about cleanliness. It's not about, co-opting the passengers into doing. It's a brilliant one, actually. I have a different kind of cry altogether. And that has gone public as well. But let me narrate here. By the way, we are not supposed to talk about disconnects. I'll just violate it for a while and come back. Whenever I take a flight Indigo from Delhi or Bangalore or anywhere, it goes closer to Hyderabad, and then the first officer calls out. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, we are now landing at Shamshabad. And I cringe within. I have taken a ticket to Hyderabad, and he says, I am landing at Shamshabad. It is the only airline, by the way. Jet Airways, SpiceJet, and various other airlines, they say they are landing at Hyderabad. The first officer of Indigo Airlines says, we are landing at Shamshabad. So I put up a protest. And they asked me to wait, and you can talk to the pilot. So I waited and I spoke to the pilot, and the pilot has opened a big chart, and he has shown me that there are about 8 airports in Hyderabad, which I didn't know. 8 airports or 8 strips in that sense. And they had to differentiate, and therefore, as per ATC's lingo, it is called Shamshabad, and therefore we are landing at Shamshabad. So as a school child, my question was, when I fly Air India, or when I fly Jet Airways, when I fly SpiceJet and others, the same ATC responds to them and asks them to land. But they don't call it Shamshabad, they call it Hyderabad. How is it different? Then I tweeted to one of the ministers in Hyderabad, and then I had to speak to them separately. Indigo has not changed till now. You are going to Shamshabad even now also. But after landing, the crew, the air hostess and others, they announced that you're all welcome to Hyderabad. So that's a kind of, saving grace for us. Well, that's a very good example of Indigo which you have given. And different customers probably have different elements where it is emotional, positively or negatively. And that's a very interesting point. For millennials, the things are very different. They adopt technology very fast. If at all they have any positive moments of experience, they will not keep to themselves. They'll share with others. They'll probably advocate. Whereas others who are not millennials, I'll not call them older people, but I'll call them others, they probably will not share it forward with anyone else. I mean, that's a typical behavior, consumer behavior aspect by learned research organizations which have thrown up this data. Millennials probably react very differently. How in this competitive world, you have to always put up with something which is competitively differentiated. How can content for millennials be differentiated and at the same time has an emotional connect so that they advocate it, they share it, they forward it to their family and friends? I think Vikram can talk about it.
So, when it comes to millennials, it's very interesting, and probably the mantra for that is less is more, right? You don't have to work too hard, you don't have to do too much because everything is driven by what I would call is super fans, right? What is it called? Super fans. So going back to the emotional connect, the primary objective of any consumer experience is to delight a customer. And then this delighted customer has to then drive many more customers or recruit many more customers. That's the philosophy of superfans. So if you have a superfan who likes content, and unlike the mass media when it comes to digital, or even now within mass media, you have a lot of niche content-based channels. What really happens there is you are going more depth than width in terms of content. And when I say depth, there could be fans of something as niche as military, auto, outdoor, travel, so on and so forth. And then it's all about saying that although the masses are there, or on a niche platform or a mass platform, the differentiation really goes in there saying, how is one individual going in depth and really mining data in terms of content? So if you take a simple example of Facebook, it's got huge number of customers across, but then they are creating these packets of consumers or contents which can talk to each other and create more relevance. So for example, if I look at my Facebook account, you may have 500, 700 friends connected. But let's take, for example, my hobby is paragliding, right? I don't have more than 2 or 3 guys who will be in that space. So for example, a friend of mine is a great pet lover. He doesn't find more than a couple of people over there. So you really want more people to kind of get in there and circulate the messaging saying, okay, how do we connect to each other and build content together? So if you look at pet lovers within Facebook, there are actually campaigns which a mass platform in digital like Facebook is doing, saying, let me create these niches verticals. We, for example, at Discovery have created a niche which is military. So there is a channel called Veer by Discovery. It's a digital channel. So if you are not a fan of what the Indian military is doing right now, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, you wouldn't even have heard about this. But we've crossed the subscriber range of what the official Indian military page is today. And then we work very closely with the Ministry of Defense across Army, Navy, Air Force. So it's really about a super fan who's hungry for content and always pushing you to the boundary, saying I want more, because what he or she does is creates multiple users in that group, and then they challenge you to kind of go deeper in content again and again and again. While they help you to spread it by sharing it and recruiting more customers themselves for you, it's a double-edged sword. It keeps you on your toes all the time, because that is the person who knows probably more than your content team itself.
I would just take on to what Samar also said, and Vikram, that the entire personalization becomes extremely important and humanizing the experience. And I'll just share one, a personal experience. Of course, e-commerce world is trying hard to create that experience, because there's definitely a barrier since they don't have a face-to-face interaction, which you experience at the retail shop. You walk into a retail shop and you say that even what the discount is, you ask some more discount, and there is a store manager offers some discount, and there's a certain experience you go through. And on e-commerce, of course, that's a big barrier, and most of the players are trying to break those barriers by creating those kind of experiences. And my experience was with Amazon, and at 9 p.m. at night, suddenly my daughter said she needs some geometry box, and of course, there is no way I would have gone out and got that. Being a Prime customer, I ordered that online, and being a Prime customer, of course, I was privileged that in the morning at about 8:30 it got delivered to me. So it is not about that Amazon, it was a great thing because it's the value is not as great. But I think those are the things which go on to seek loyalty from the customer. And as you said, that advocacy is important, and once emotional connect happens, you go back, and the emotionally connected customer are twice as supposed to be valued as satisfied customer, and hence the word of mouth and advocacy becomes important. So the entire personalization is important. Of course, we need to have mass personalization, as Samar said, which is extremely important but challenging at the same time. But I'm sure, banking industry and telecom industry can do a lot. I mean, I bank with a bank for about 20 years. But do I have one experience to talk about? Not really right now. I have a telecom with, I think 25 years I would have not changed a service provider. It's meeting my requirement. It's not that I would change. I think it's doing everything right. But it's not that I'm emotionally connected to it. So I think, as Sushmita also pointed out, there are certain categories where it's fine, it's meeting your basic requirement and you're not seeking that experience. But when it comes to a lot of other categories like a retail experience or a lifestyle brand, you tend to seek a better experience, right? So that you feel more connected and you want to go back to it.
Great. I think Samar can also talk about this. If you remember in the speakers lounge, we were talking about different things, different content means for different groups of stakeholders, it has got a value. For example, what is not liked by you probably is liked by many others, and there's a huge segment lying out there. I think some of those examples should be for the benefit of some students who are sitting here.
You know, you mentioned millennials a little while ago. By the way, I prefer to call the others as millennial mindsets. So we are millennial mindsets, we're not the others, right? Some inclusion. For this younger age group, Gen Z, millennials, associating with brands with a higher purpose is very important. Something beyond commercial gain, something beyond just making money. And they get emotionally connected to brands like that. So I have nieces and nephews, my own daughter, etc., who will always eat organic. They will wear private label clothes. They don't want to spend too much on weddings. But they will have no hesitation in saving up for that bungee jumping trip in New Zealand, because it's that whole Instagram moment on, so investing for experiences. So if you're someone who's providing goods and services to this consumption set, they're very critical, very skeptical. They don't believe your advertising. They talk to each other. They go by recommendations. And it's really challenging to sort of, conventional communication doesn't really work with them. That's one. The other thing is they're influenced by YouTubers and by, Instagram influencers and, stuff like that. So that's a whole ball game. But the discussion that we were having a little earlier is specifically on content. My view is that there's nothing called bad content. No one starts off saying, today I'm going to make a really bad ad film. Today I'm going to make a really bad meal. Today I'm going to play really badly. They just think they're doing the best. I believe there is content that you like and content that you don't like. But no matter what is created, there is an audience for every kind of content somewhere in the country. I mean, you have media people sitting out here. There are programs that many of us will not watch at all, yet they have TRPs of 5, 6, 7, which means there is someone that is watching them, and that consumption set represents current and potential consumers for many goods and services. So, there is nothing that's good or bad. I think it is more whether it's relevant or not. And even in today's times, for instance, I was reading an article, and I don't know, there are how many people from Kerala, a lot of Malayali cinema, a lot of Indian cinema is very regressive in many ways, but there's an audience for it. A lot of Malayali cinema has macho, well-known actors mouthing lines that frankly are extremely offensive in 2018, especially as far as treatment of women is concerned. And I'm told, without taking the names of these big actors, that the audiences are cheering. I mean, I'm guessing the audience is full of men, and when these regressive lines are spoken, the audiences are cheering. Now, do you make a value, as a marketer, do you make a value judgment on the ethics of it, or do you make a cold, objective assessment of the fact that this is my market for this product? I would advise you to keep your morality at home, unless you're doing some work, and look at it objectively from that point of view. So there is, no matter what kind of a product or service, there is always a market somewhere for it. And India being, I think Vikram was talking about the multiplicity of the Indian, we have diversity of religion, culture, cuisine, language, scripts, food, looks, clothes. There's no one solution to it all. I mean, we in the beer industry, we have to have, we believe that every beer consumer in the country should have a solution for any kind of beer that he or she is looking for from within our portfolio. And today I don't have a 100% solution. So we're now getting into craft beers, we're getting into Indian pale ales and wheat, etc., which we had tried 20 years ago and it didn't do well. Maybe it was ahead of its time. So, you just have to curate those. And consumer loyalty is a leaky bucket. You are going to lose consumers every day. You need to, in the broadcast business, they'll have people who drop out, but you just have to add new people and promise them or give them those experiences all the time and hope that the net accretion is positive.
Great. I think consumer loyalty is a leaky bucket. That's a good one. And Indian society or Indian market as such is plural. So many divisions or so many kinds of people based on various parameters. I think it's a challenge. These are some of the challenges that we should make note of. Nothing is easier, nothing is textbook. Everything is out there for us to grapple with and then manage to create some emotional connect through some content, through some kind of designed customer experience, and then win the game. I think it's not at all easy. It sounds very easy when we talk about it, but it is very, very challenging, as enumerated by all the panelists. I'm going to take about 2 minutes. I'm going to take about 2 minutes, and still we have some time. 2 minutes we have. Yeah, there is Q&A. I'm told that there is this brand of swimming pools in Australia. It is called, in Perth, it is Western Australia Lifeguards, WA Lifeguards. So what happened is these parents take their children to swimming pools and the children are swimming and the parents like us are looking at their smartphones, mothers and fathers both. Now when they look at these smartphones, there's a danger. The child is actually swimming on his own or her own. So they confabulated and they kind of come up with a solution, and the solution is that they changed the password of the Wi-Fi that's available in the swimming pools. Earlier, the password was pool_123, is now changed to keep watching me. You are my lifeguard. Kind of passwords have been changed slowly to bring about some kind of change in the mindset. You don't totally get immersed into what is being on your smartphone, but also keep an eye, keep a watch on the child who's taking a swim. I think there are many ways, innovative ways that one can look at and do it. And in education also, where we deal with millennials, we deal with 18, 19, 20-year-olds in our schools, in our universities. The customer experience is called student experience over there, and it's not at all easy. We grapple with a lot of issues, and especially at ICFI, what we have done is we have told them that this brand belongs to you, which is in true sense, it belongs to them. We are only managing this brand for a few years and we go back. As long as they live, the brand is with them. They are the owners of the brand. So entire business school is run by the students in terms of activities and all. We create lots of clubs, we empower them, they take decisions. We at the end have to just say yes. So we take a lot of pride and privilege in saying yes to whatever they propose. And ultimately, it is managing the whole thing with least involvement into, or least interference into their activities. We have done one thing over the last 33 years that we have been in existence. We have brought all the senior alumni onto the governing board of the ICFI society, which is the parent society. I don't know how many institutions have done that, but on our parent society, which governs all these 11 universities, 9 business schools and tech schools, and that 16 campuses, 99% of the members on the board of governors of ICFI society are ICFI alumni. 99%. Statistically, it is correct. We thought it belongs to them, and in true sense, every step has to be dovetailed to making it truly believable that it belongs to them. And as we move forward, as we discuss, alumni take shots. Alumni actually decide various things in terms of selecting the next batch, in terms of, forming committees to support the current students, groom and mentor the budding entrepreneurs, so on and so forth, many activities over the campus, beyond the campus as well. I think it is equally more challenging in educational institutions if you really want to have an amazing student experience on campus with an emotional connect, that they have to come back and nurture it as their own brand, it is very, very difficult. So now we throw the floor open to questions from audience. If you have, we will be trying our level best to answer if you have any. Over to you, please. Yeah. Can you please rotate the mic?
This question is from Mr. Samar Singh Shekhawat. You were mentioning about customer experience as the most important thing, and then you also said that millennials have a different pattern of buying things. Sometime back, another speaker had told about that customer loyalty is a thing of past. It doesn't exist anymore, and brand loyalty, and customers keep changing their brands. So for millennials, how important is a brand loyalty, and how do brands create, brand loyalties among the millennials?
Shalini, I think the days of consumers being loyal to brands are gone. Brands have to be loyal to consumers. So that's the simple answer. You know, repertoire across categories has increased much more than it used to be. The same consumer will eat Chinese, Italian, Indian. The same consumer will eat at a 5-star or at a dhaba, depending on which time of the month, how much money they have. You have to understand that you will never have 100% of a consumer anymore. Hopefully you will have more than 50% of the occasions where that consumer buys your product or goods or services. And you will have to have other products or services that you will need to have in your portfolio to be able to hold that consumer. I mean, in this room about a month ago, I gave the example of, for instance, if you don't like this room, I need to have another room that you like, where you can move to, as opposed to you leaving the building altogether. Because you're going to leave this room in any case. I better have another room for you, otherwise you're going to leave the building. So you have to be loyal to, brands have to be loyal to consumers, number one. Number two, accept the repertoire is a fact of life. Number three, accept that even your most loyal consumers will try competing products depending on mood, on ambience, on budget, on company, on occasion. And number four, try and have as many solutions to that consumer's needs and wants as you can possibly have.
Thank you so much.
Hi, sir. Most of the examples you gave was all positive emotions, as you rightly started the discussion in the beginning. But what I would like to know is about the new consumer emotional connect trends which you are noticing, either in the university or in the experiences or the research which is happening recently. The new consumer emotional connects. And also, any negative emotional connect has been converted to positive in your experiences. All of them can take the question.
Do you have a person in mind to answer your question?
No, everybody can have different.
No, I think one person can answer, yeah. Any negative emotional connect has been converted to positive.
Okay, I can think of I don't know if it's a negative we converted to a positive, but this is based on personal experience and what I've observed. Apple, for instance, I think, you have a service center which is very often attached to the store, and people who are coming to the store quite often could, encounter an irate customer who's not very happy. So one of the things that they have done is they have introduced this customer service app, which sort of reduces, at least some of the issues can, get resolved maybe through the app. Whether it actually works or not, I don't know, but that is the intention. So this could be one of the ways in which you reduce those irate customers coming to the store, or, reduce the amount of irateness. But I think that's a solution. One of the things which I can think of immediately.
If I may, the approach has to be that any customer who's complaining is actually an opportunity. Don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as free, unpaid research. And that customer or consumer, by the way, most dissatisfied or unhappy or emotionally disconnected consumers don't complain, especially in India. So the ones who are actually taking the trouble to complain are, number one, a small minority of the ones that are actually dissatisfied or emotionally disconnected or unhappy. So each of those should be worth their weight in gold And it's a tremendous opportunity for you to set that right. Because if they become advocates, then they will tell others in terms of how their negative experience was converted to a positive experience. And there are many examples. I mean, think of your own life. You've had issues, washing machine, plumbing person, etc. And if it gets resolved really quickly, maybe you'll tell someone else. If it doesn't, you'll tell more people.
Just to add, as you know, in advertising or in media agency, we do social listening. And that gives us a lot of opportunity, as he rightly said, that irate customers, they talk negative about your brand, right? And when they talk negative about your brand, those are the signals you pick up at that point of time and convert it as an opportunity to either reach out to him or her directly, or you change something about your communication, or you change something about the experience. So that's been undertaken by a lot of advertisers today and a lot of companies. And to tackle the millennials talking about it negatively is one of a very big aid which we have been seeing.
I'll quickly give one example, which is a real example with us. There are very few organizations which are ideal. We are not in that category. We are not ideal. There's a parent of a student who is angry and he's shouting at the teacher, at the faculty member. And the reason is that the student has not been allowed to take the exam for want of minimum prescribed attendance. It is 75%, the boy fell short by 5%. So the parent went to the head of the department and he created a ruckus over there and he shouted. And the faculty member said, you please go to headquarters. And then they came to headquarters and he's in front of me and I spoke to him. And the parent now tells me that you are much younger to that faculty member, you are talking so nicely. And all. What happened actually is a different person has to listen. Just connecting to Samar, if I don't act as if listening, he'll go outside, he'll tell the media. He finds his own vent, he finds his own avenues to talk about crib and share. I probably didn't solve it. I convened 4 meetings. I bought time. Convened 4 meetings. He wanted the entire machinery to be present and tell him very convincingly that the student cannot take exam. You know what happened? He threatened us with leading newspaper organizations, media agencies to call us and say that this boy has to be allowed to take exam. Otherwise, we'll write negative about you, number one. Number two, he has a lot of muzzle and things like that. So he came with a bunch of people. Then we sat them down and we spoke to them. The third level is that he wanted to speak to my board. And the board, for the first time, is talking to somebody like that. So the board was convened. There are 2 members who are representatives. They sat and we called the vice chancellor and the board of studies and the senior faculty members. All of them came. They picked up the data and they said, these are the letters which we have sent to you in the intranet, in the parents' corner. We have sent all the communication. This is what it is. You still fell short by 5% and therefore we are not going to allow. And then the parent said, but it's only 5%. Then the vice chancellor said, we have the next class to attend. And then they came back to me and they said, sir, please re-register. The boy is re-registered and is studying in the next batch.
Fantastic.
He's very happy.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the positive time, I know you want to ask a question. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there. I'm so sorry about it, timekeeping and all that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question.
Can I ask the last question, please?
I think I already said it, but I'm going to ask the organizer. We're really running short of time. Okay, we'll have a quick answer, right? Go on.
So brands are really, struggling to understand the psychographics of the millennials. Do you have any expert, do you have any expert opinion for how to understand how to capture the millennials as their customers?
Thank you. I'll take that. There is a very large study which is called the Target Group Index, which is basically a psychographic mapping. And the bulk of the audience is the millennials. So maybe you should tap into that.
Shatumita, I'll just add a bit. Anyone who's a parent understands them. Never ever underestimate the importance of parenting. It's the single greatest act of marketing, production, finance, supply chain, creation that any human being can ever do.
Thank you all. Wonderful.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that was some discussion. Can I hear a big round of applause for all the panelists? Now, I request the panelists to stay back on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Welcome on stage Mr. Anil Surendra, Vice President at Sales, Suvarna News and Kannada Prabha. And also Mrs. Santosh Koshi, Regional Head Sales South, BTVI. Can I hear a big round of applause for both of them? They'll be doing the honors. They'll be presenting a memento to the members of the panel. Thank you once